Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California. He is a member of the House Judiciary and Foreign Relations Committees. Congressman, it's good to see you again. Let's start with that speaker vote. What's your reaction to the GOP disarray at this point?
Thank you, Michael, for your question. Right now, we have Democrats in array and GOP in disarray. One reason I think is because of Kevin McCarthy himself. I served with Kevin McCarthy when we were both in the California State Legislature. I've known him for many years, and many of us actually don't know what he stands for. So, for example, right after the insurrection, he spoke the truth about what happened and that Donald Trump was responsible. And then a few days later, he completely reverses course and bends the knee to Donald Trump. So I think his own members are seeing that, and they have difficulty understanding what his principles are.
Your colleague, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, said this week that she wouldn't support removing Democrats from committees, a step that Kevin McCarthy has vowed to take if he gets the Speaker's gavel. What do you make of that dissension, especially from a more moderate voice inside the Republican Party?
So Democrats are focused on putting people over politics and on safer communities, lower costs, and better paying jobs. And what is Kevin McCarthy focused on? Revenge. And if you look at his Twitter account, he's pinned to the top of his Twitter account what he thinks is the most important thing for Republicans next term, and it's Hunter Biden's laptop. Actually, it's even more stupid than that. It's what Twitter said about Hunter Biden's laptop. So that's where the Republican Party is. Revenge and what Twitter said about Hunter Biden's laptop.
So, Congressman, the GOP barely holds the majority that they need to try to get anything done. So how can the Democrats use this opportunity and certainly the infighting that we see among Republicans to their advantage in the next Congress to try to shift the way things flow?
Democrats had the best performance in midterm since FDR. And as a result, the Republicans in the majority only have essentially a 5-seat advantage. That's a very slim majority. And if they cannot be unified, which we're seeing they're not unified right now because they can't even get a speaker, then it's going to be very hard for Republicans to pass anything off the House floor without Democratic support, which means Democrats will have a lot more leverage in these next 2 years than we normally would have.
I want to get your reaction to the goings-on down at Mar-a-Lago, because this week a New York Times investigation showed visitors of Mar-a-Lago were partying within feet of where top-secret government materials were stored after Trump left office. This is, as the Washington Post reported just last week, that an outside team working with Trump's lawyers in a court-ordered search had found 2 additional documents marked classified in a Florida storage unit. So from your perspective, how concerning is all of this?
Not only am I concerned, I'm angry. I had a security clearance before Congress. I served in active duty United States military. Anyone who has security clearance that came even close to doing what Donald Trump did would be in prison. And in fact, we sent a federal employee to prison earlier this year because she brought some secret documents to her hotel room. Donald Trump's actions are far worse. He had documents way above the secret level at the SCI top secret level, and they were all over the place at Mar-a-Lago. It is an embarrassment to the United States of America of Donald Trump when he can't even get his act together and keep these documents in a classified location at a SCIF. But to have it all over Mar-a-Lago is a federal crime.
So, talking about federal crimes, the NBC News is reporting that the January 6th committee is actively considering recommending 3 potential criminal charges against Trump, including insurrection and others. Do you support those recommendations if they go forward with them?
I do. I was a House impeachment manager for the second impeachment. And by the way, I think it's hilarious that we still have to identify which impeachment because a former president was just that bad. But it was very clear that in that proceeding that Donald Trump got people to come to Washington, D.C. on January 6th for the purpose of stopping the certification of the election for Joe Biden by Congress. And so that is a federal crime, essentially conspiracy to defraud the United States government. is an action that interferes with a legitimate governmental activity, and Congress certifying the Electoral College results was a legitimate governmental activity, and also obstructing an official act, which in this case was that certification, is also a federal crime.
So, Congressman, before I let you go, what would you like to see from the final January 6th committee hearing and the final report? How do you think all of this should be packaged?
So the committee members are doing a fantastic job on the January 6th committee. Because I'm not on the committee, I'm not going to speak for them as to how they should vote or not vote. But I do know that whatever vote they take is going to be based on the best interests of the United States of America, in contrast to what Donald Trump ever does.
Congressman Ted Lieu of California, thank you very much. Appreciate you.